All right, we have a question here. Gladys company manufactures one product and the entire product is sold as soon as it is produced. There are no opening or closing inventories and work in progress is negligible. The company operates a standard costing system and analysis of variances is made every month. The standard cost card for a product is as follows. So this standard cost card basically is just telling us the details of what is needed whenever we're producing each unit of the good we're selling. All right. They haven't specified which good is being sold. Okay, but whenever we produce one unit of this good, this is everything that's needed to produce the good and the prices. Okay. Yes. So they've told us budgeted output for the month of June was to 20, of budgeted output for the month of June 2022 was 5,100 units. Actual results for June 2022 were as follows. So these are the actual results. As I said, in variance analysis, comparing what was expected to what actually happened. Right. So production of 4,850 units sold for 150,350. Materials consumed in production amounted to 2,300 kgs at a total cost of 9,800. Labor hours paid for amounted to 8,500 hours at a cost of 67,800. Actual labor hours worked amounted to 8,000 hours. Variable overheads amounted to 2,600. So we need to calculate the following variances here. Okay, so we're going to go through each variance one by one. Okay, we're going to start with first material price variance. What it is basically, you're comparing what you should have paid for materials versus what you actually paid for the materials. Okay, for the material price variance, what you should have paid for the materials versus what you actually paid for the materials. Okay, so the material price variance, how you get it, it's the standard price, which you get from the standard cost card, minus the actual price multiplied by the actual quantity. Okay. So since this is based on the materials, we have to find out, okay, what's the standard price of the materials? Okay. So one unit needs zero point 0.5 kilograms. And each kilogram is going at 4 kwacha per kilogram. So this is the standard price here. Okay, 4 kwacha per kilogram. Right now, I want to know what is what was the actual price. Okay, so remember they told us here that materials we paid a total of 9,800 and we use a total of 2,300 kgs. So the actual price we paid, you're going to divide 9,800 by 2,300 is 4.26 kwacha per kg. All right. So this was the actual price per kg that was paid. This is what we expect. We expected to pay 4 kwacha per kg, but in actuality we paid 4.26 kwacha per kg. So we want to find out the variance. So we said standard price 4 kwacha per kg, minus actual price 4 kwacha 26 ngwe multiplied by the actual quantity. The actual quantity used, again, they've told us in the question was 2,300 kg. So say 4 minus 4.26, 0.26 times 2,300, you get 600 kwacha adverse. Actually, this is a negative value here. Equals 4 minus 4.26 is negative 0.26. Negative 0.26 times 2,300, we get negative 600. So what this is telling us is we actually paid more than what we expected. Right, went over by 600 quaj. Any questions before I go to the next variance? All right. Okay, we can go to the next one now. Material usage variance. So basically, we're comparing the amount of material we should have used versus the actual material we used. Okay, what we should have used versus what was actually used. Okay, so formula is standard quantity minus actual quantity times standard price. Now in the question, we already have the actual quantity of materials used. It was 2,300 kgs. Okay, in the question they told us we use 2,300 kgs. So we have the actual quantity, but we have to find out what is the standard quantity. So in order to get the standard quantity, okay, find out how many units were produced. Okay, we produced 4,850 units. How much material is needed per unit? It's 0.5 kg per unit. Okay, this information is here. All right, we produce 4,850 units and we expect to use 0.5 kilograms per unit. So in actuality, we're going to say 0.5 times 4,850. We get 2,425. So according to our standard cost card, was supposed to use 2,425 kg. But in actuality, we used 2,300. So it's like we used more. Or we used less actually, yeah. Because the actual quantity is 2,000. So we used less, okay? Because we're expected to use 2,425, but we used 2,300. So find the variance, standard quantity minus actual quantity times the standard price. Right. So why we're multiplying by the standard price is because we're trying to measure efficiency here. So once say, okay, if everything was held constant, the price just stayed the same. Did we use more materials or less materials? Okay, that's why we're using the standard price. We're trying to see how efficient we were with using our materials. Okay. So you say 2,425 minus 2,300. That's what we get. 2,425 minus 2,300. Yes, so we saved like 125 kgs. Okay, and if we go according to our standard cost, which was 4 kwacha per kg, say 125 times 4, we get 500 kwacha, which is favorable. Right? So basically, we used less materials than expected. So it's like we've saved some materials. That's why we're saying this variance is favorable. Okay. So one thing I want you to notice in this formula, it's mostly a standard minus the actual. And if you get a negative value, then you know that the result is bad, adverse. If you get a positive value, know the result is good, favorable. All right. Now this is mostly for variances where you're dealing with costs. All right. Variances where you're dealing with prices is actually it's actual minus standard. Okay. Any questions before we move to the next variance? You're saying that, wait, repeat that question again, just one more time. I want to understand it. Um, I've seen in some books that is done. They use that method, but our advice use this method so that it's easier to interpret. Because when you use standard minus actual, you know that if you get a negative value, it's bad. If you get a positive value, it's good. Now, if you use the way you have implied that question, it's like you have to now reverse the rules. If you get a negative value, it's good. If you get a positive value, it's favorable. So I would advise you use this one so that you can easily interpret at the end. Okay, if you get negative, you know that it's bad. Okay, because usually, naturally, anything that's negative is bad, right? Then anything that's positive is good, right? So I would advise use standard minus act. Okay, standard minus act. Yeah, standard minus actual. Okay, the next one is total material cost variance. Okay, so basically, we're just trying to measure what the total cost of materials we should have paid versus what we actually paid. So it's the standard total cost minus the actual total cost. Okay, so here we are coming to this figure here. Direct materials is 2 kwacha per unit. We produced 4,850 units. So according to our standard cost card, the total material cost was supposed to be multiply 2 times 4,850. Uh-huh. Is that a question? Okay, so as I said, the cost is 2 kwacha per unit. We produced 4,850. So we were supposed to pay 9,700 for the materials. But in actuality, we paid 9,800 for the materials. This 9,800 is given to us in the question. Okay. Usually the actual results will be given to you in the question. Okay. So you say the standard cost minus actual cost, you say 9,700 minus 9,800, you get negative 100 kwach, which means it's adverse, it's a bad result. We spent more than what we expected. Okay. Because here the name of the game is you want to spend less, okay, so that you can save money. But if you're spending more, then it's a bad thing. Okay. Any questions on total material cost variance? So we overspent by 100 quad. All right, we have labor rate variance. Okay, what we expected to pay in terms of labor versus what we actually paid. Okay, because remember, it's what you expect versus what actually happened. So the labor rate variance is just your standard rate minus your actual rate multiplied by the actual hours paid. Okay. So according to our cost card, our labor rate is here, 8 kwacha per hour. Okay. We've been told we use the amount of hours that was paid for was 8,500 hours. So we see, okay, according to our standard cost card, what were we supposed to pay for labor? So you're going to say 8 kwacha per hour times 8,500 hours. Let's see what value we get there. Oh, there's a mix up actually here. We've already been given our standard rate. We need to get our actual rate. Standard rate here is 8 kwacha per hour. And as you see here, when you subtract and multiply, it's the same as multiplying each number by 8,500. So the standard rate is 8 kwacha per hour. Then we'll find out what is the actual rate that was paid. And they told us to get the actual rate that was paid for the labor, we need to get the total labor cost divided by the total number of hours. They told us the total labor cost was 67,800. Worked for 8,000. Labor was paid for 8,500 hours. So, like, the actual labor rate was 7.97 per hour. So, standard rate minus actual rate times actual hours paid. So, you say 8 minus 7.976. What value do we get? 8 times minus 7. Get 0.024 times 8,500. You get 204, which is favorable. So in terms of labor, we paid less than what we actually expected. All right. According to our cost card, it's 8 kwacha per hour, but in actuality, we paid 7.976 per hour. Right. So we have a favorable variance of 204 kwacha. So it's like we've saved the 204 kwacha. Any questions? Okay. So we go to labor efficiency variance. So one trick I need you to remember is whenever you hear efficiency or usage, just know you're multiplying by a standard rate. Because as I said, with efficiency, you want to hold everything constant. So you want the standard rate to just be as it is. You want to see if you use materials or you utilized working hours efficiently. So we're not worried about the price. We're worried about the usage and the number of hours. So labor efficiency variance. We're just comparing the hours we should have worked for the actual production, according to our standard card, versus the actual hours that were worked. All right. The hours we should have worked for our actual production versus the actual hours that were worked. So it's standard hours minus actual hours times the standard rate. Standard hours, we have to find, okay, to get the standard hours, it's, as we can see, find our labor rate per hour. Direct wages, or finding the number of hours per unit. So for each unit, we need to spend 2 hours here. To produce 1 unit, we need to take 2 hours. That's according to our standard cost card. But in actuality, we need to find out, okay, in actuality, how many hours were used for each unit. Okay, so standard hours for actual output, 2 hours per unit. We produce 4,850 units. So we spent a total of, we're expected to spend 9,700 hours. To produce these 4,850 units, we're supposed to take 9,700 hours. But in actuality, we worked for 8,000 hours. So in this case, it seems we were efficient. We used less hours than what was we expected to use 9,700 hours, but in this here we used 8,000. All right. So it's like we were efficient. Okay. So you say 9,700 minus 8,000 multiplied by the standard rate, which is 8 kwacha per hour. You get positive 13,604, meaning it is favorable. So we were efficient with time. Okay. We were supposed to spend 9,700 hours according to our standard cost card, but we spent only 8,000. So we're efficient with time. Any questions?